Welcome back to my interview project, Chasing Stars. Our guest today has been performing since he was in school for a lot of times, doing a lot of school productions, and was able to step into the industry no longer after he graduated from UCLA. You might have seen him as Dwayne in the off-Broadway production of Superhero, or lately as Dmitry in Anastasia national tour. That's welcome, Jake Levy. Hi!
Hey, how are you?
How are you?
Good. Nice to see you.
Nice to see you too. So we can go straight into it.
Awesome. Let's do it.
Let's welcome our guest today, Jake Levy.
Yes. Oh my God. It's so, honestly, throughout tour, I loved everything that you made for us. It was really, really beautiful.
I appreciate, I love you guys' performance and like how you guys bring out the energy and passion, everything towards the audience, toward me is the power, the energy that keeps me like, oh, I have this idea of making a new painting and another idea of making a new painting.
Well, thank you.
Okay, so let's get straight to the interview.
Yeah.
Of course, first question, how have you been dealing with your life since the shutdown, everything?
Yeah, I mean, I've been here in Los Angeles, sort of just hanging out, sort of trying to stay sane and stay busy, I guess, just trying to stay musically active as well. I've been on TikTok, and which is definitely passing the time. But yeah, I mean, it's a hard time for all of us actors, and with all the shows closed, and with really, I mean, I know they're saying January, but we're hoping that it might be sooner, or if January doesn't work out, sometime soon after that. So we're hoping that it'll be hopefully sooner than later for us actors.
Hopeful too. Bring back a little to the old memory. What is the moment when you decide that, oh, I want to be a performer? Like, is there a specific show or like a specific actor that really inspired you?
I mean, I guess we can dial back to the first show I ever did, which was Take Me Along, which was also an off-Broadway show in New York City, because I grew up on Long Island, sort of right outside the city. And yeah, it was, I think then, because I prior to that, I had been doing a bunch of commercials and sort of a lot of television things. And so this was sort of my agent said, like, hey, you know what? I'm going to send you in for a musical. I know it's nothing you've done before, but my mom, always said that I was singing in the car and I liked singing, and, my agent sort of knew that. And so she sent me in for this musical. And when I got it, I was, obviously very excited. And I was the only kid in the musical. So I was working with, sort of these older, more professional actors that, I didn't really guess, I didn't know of at that time, because I wasn't really versed in musical theater. But I just remember being on stage and sort of thinking like, oh, this is a fun, and, commercial work is a lot of like, smile and wave sort of, stuff. So it was a totally different world, musical theater, and just theater in general, and the live aspect of it too, which was very exciting. I just remember being on stage, and it was the ending, like we were in rehearsals, and it was the last number, and we all hold hands, and we're all like in a Rent fashion. We're all holding hands, and we're singing out to the audience. And I just remember the actress next to me looking at me, and just like looking at me. And, it's like, that was, almost enough, where I was like, oh, wow, like this is live. We are here. We are connecting on stage, that's for us. Like, it's not like, yes, it's for the audience, but like, she's like, we are in this together. And then, it's just the camaraderie and the connection between myself and the work, and the actors on stage, and the audience itself. And I think that was when I was like, oh yeah, theater, and and sort of just a live performance in general, which was very exciting. And again, I was 10 years old when I did that, so I think that was sort of what ignited the fire, and then led me up the path that I took.
This is like such a weird feeling, like as you say about your story, and then I was like, yes, and like I was like so hyped in this moment.
Yeah, no, I mean, and that's the thing about like, theater is really, it's such a communal experience that we all get to experience together when we're all in the same room watching, and all in the same room. Now we're on Zoom, obviously, but you can still, it's a connection that we all can feel no matter what.
Yeah. Well, you mentioned a little bit about doing like TVs and commercials. I also did a little bit like research, and I saw some of your credits on IMDb. What do you feel like the most difference performing in front of the camera and theater?
It's interesting because you have the live people in front of you naturally for theater, and in on a set you're really only working with obviously the actors that are in the room and you're doing the scene with, but that camera is your audience, and you always have to keep that in mind without sort of disturbing your performance, so to speak, because you don't want it to be just for the camera. Obviously you want to do the work and you want to do it for yourself and make the most truthful performance you can make, but you always have to keep in mind that camera, and especially how you're being seen by that camera, because all the little emotions that are happening is going to be picked up by that camera. And I think that's sort of the beauty of film and TV, is that you really, compared to theater, you have to make sort of a bigger gesture. I mean, especially with a show like Anastasia, where it is a little more Disney-esque, even though I know it's not a Disney show. It's sort of bigger emotion, bigger, and anything with when you stop talking and you go into music is just naturally a larger emotion, and that has to be conveyed to someone who's in the back row of the Pantages Theater, to to name one. But the camera could be right here, so you could you can keep that emotion very small and sort of very somewhat more realistic than in theater, because that camera's right there and able to see that and pick that up. So I think that's one of the larger differences.
We'll talk a little bit about Anastasia later, but I want to ask you, what does it feel like? What's the experience to like receive the opportunity to play in Superhero, the off-Broadway production? Like that wasn't really long after you graduate from UCLA, right?
Yeah, no, I mean, it's sort of a funny and really just beautiful story, but because I mean, I graduated in 2018 from UCLA, so a little over I guess 2 years ago now, and which I moved to New York right away, and I was sort of a lot of my friends were staying in Los Angeles, and I was like, what, and granted I also grew up in New York, so it was sort of almost a homecoming as well, but I went, back to New York, and I was like, what, I'm just going to jump right in and, hope for the best. And obviously UCLA helped out immensely with, we had a showcase at the end of our senior year. And through that, I garnered sort of a more adult agent in New York, which was very exciting. But I remember, the first couple, like the first month in New York, where I was just sort of, sitting there, and I was like going on open calls. I was waiting by the phone for my, agents to call with an audition or something like that. And it really wasn't happening until I called for Superhero. And Superhero was the first musical audition I went on in New York upon graduating. And yeah, I mean, I knew Tom Kitt beforehand, not personally, but just as a fan. I loved Next to Normal, and I knew the work that he had done on multiple musicals. So when I went in, I was like, oh, how cool would this be? Kind of almost shooting for the stars, because obviously I felt prepared, I felt ready, I felt able to jump into this business professionally. But yeah, I went in, and it was I just sort of tried to give it my all, and I felt the role suited me, because the role I played was Dwayne, who was sort of the school bully.
Yeah.
Suits me. We got to also, I covered Simon, who was the lead of the show, the main character, and he was sort of more of like a Dear Evan Hansen type recluse, sort of, picked on and sort of comic book nerd. And so I sort of felt that I could capture both. Sort of my essence built more of Dwayne, this, sort of larger bully, but I think emotionally I was able to capture the, even though it wasn't the sort of ideally physically best role for me, but I was able to capture the emotional capacity of Simon. And so I really felt good going in, and it was like a quick audition process, just 2 rounds, which is sort of fewer than not. And it was amazing when I got the call. I mean, it was just a week or 2 after I had gone in for my final callback with Tom Kidd and everyone there, and that was very exciting to begin with. Blew my mind. I got the call, and both my manager and agent was on the phone, and they're like, "You know what it means when we're both on the phone, right?" And I was like, "Yes, I think I do. I think I know." But yeah, I mean, it was very exciting, and also just to be able to play a role in a prominent theater like that, Second Stage Theater. It was very exciting, and just working with Tom Kitt and everyone, just an amazing experience.
What is your definition of a superhero? Like, do you feel like being as a performer right now, it kind of like make you feel like a superhero, like having a mission, a quest?
Right. No, that's amazing. I don't know. It's funny because we talked a lot about that during Superhero, and we did a whole thing where we asked a bunch of people like who their superhero is and whatnot. But yeah, I don't know. It's like I think a superhero is someone who has the power, quote unquote, to affect other people, and to for good. Naturally, you don't want them to be evil. Those are supervillains. But yeah, to be able to sort of change the minds and the emotions and the sort of everyone's, I don't know, not opinion, but sort of affect them in a positive way, and spread positivity and spread hope. That's a big one too. And yeah, I mean, I think as performers, it is nice to sort of have this power almost to touch and to be able to affect the minds, the hearts, and of people that we might never come in contact with. And and that was I think the amazing thing, moreover, with Anastasia, is that these audiences in some of these theaters were upwards of 3,000 people, and again, some of the largest audiences that I've performed for in one sitting, and to do that 8 shows a week, it was amazing, and so exciting, and to then have received mail and messages from people like yourself and others, just to be like, oh my God, like this is really an amazing thing that that I got to watch and got to experience, and thank you for telling this story and whatnot. And that that's where it again connects everyone. Also, the writers of the musical, the composers of the musical. It's like we're all sharing this story together, and I think that is somewhat of a power and being a superhero. I don't consider myself a superhero, but maybe one day I can rise.
You're one of the fans' superhero, like you never know.
Right.
Going towards some questions about Anastasia, what is like the most unforgettable thing, or the first thing just pop up to your mind whenever people ask you about your memories towards the tour?
I would say that first couple weeks of the show, where I started in Los Angeles, which was also just a dream because I went to UCLA. My family, half of my family lives here now. So that was just it. When they told me that, my first city was going to be Los Angeles, I was like, no way, no, it's unbelievable. But I mean, and as a replacement goes, and this is sort of, I guess for those who don't know, most replacements is you really only have a couple weeks to to rehearse and in order to then jump into the show with the company. So, you know, Dmitry prior was Stephen Brower, and he had been doing it and also had a sort of longer rehearsal process when they originally were building the tour to be, you know, shown for the first year. And so I jumped in, you know, when Stephen left, and yeah, I got 2 weeks to sort of, you know, go in, and they gave me the material before, so I had to, you know, I could be at home a little, you know, a few months prior and learn the material. And then, yeah, I went in and had about, you know, 2 weeks, one with the associate director, two with the director from Broadway, Darko, and which was very exciting to work with him. But again, it was like a quick process, and then to then perform in the show with all the tech elements, because again, we go from a room, because we can't really do it on stage as a replacement because they're doing the show every night because it's a continuous tour. And I met them in San Francisco, so they were still doing the tour in San Francisco, and I was you know, rehearsing in this small room where it was kind of mapped out what the stage looked like, but not really. And we get one what's called a put-in rehearsal, and the put-in rehearsal is where I get to do it on stage with my costumes, with the mic, and get to like do it with the people that matter on stage in terms of, you know, that I have scenes with and that I have lines with. And then you jump, and then the next day you're doing the real thing in front of the real people. And again, you know, I've been doing theater my whole life, and I, you know, feel that I was ready and able. But nevertheless, it was still very scary and sort of very exciting to sort of jump in those 2 weeks. And then that, you know, I think it was October 8th was my first show at the Pantages. I remember that night, you know, just barely breathing because
I remember that night as an audience. I was there.
Yeah, no, I know. And like, and to get up in front of, you know, you and, you know, how many ever people, my family, Darko, the original director, the original composers, Stephen Flaherty and Lynn Ahrens were there. And so it was, you know, nerve-wracking. I remember we did a little, like some press things before that, day of, but before the show. And I'm sort of sitting there and waiting to do the press thing, and Lynn Ahrens is over there and she's waiting to do her press thing. And then she comes over and she goes, "Darko tells me you're doing wonderfully." And I was like, oh, thank you. Like, I'm excited for tonight, you know, and you know, it was just like talking and trying to be super casual and whatnot. And she goes, "You seem very, very relaxed." And I was like, yeah, like, I don't know, yeah. Meanwhile, I'm, you know, dying on the inside, you know, half talking to Lynn Ahrens, and then the other half being that I have to perform in Lynn Ahrens' show that night. So it was overall just a crazy, amazing experience.
Well, my personal experience as an audience, I think that's the first show, and like with so short of amount of time, like being a replacement and rehearsal, everything. I think you're doing great.
Thank you. No,
you're doing great. As like
it comforts me that you were there opening night. Truly.
that is actually not the first ticket I purchased for LA. I wasn't planning on, like, that's not the first show, but then I was like, what's the opening?
Yes, yeah. No, and I think opening nights in general are just so exciting too.
It's like the opening and the closing is like, I had to.
Yeah.
Can't miss it. I was lucky enough to meet Darko at the Broadway at the closing show. I was like, oh my gosh, like I was with my friend, and then he walked out, and it's actually like 2-3 hours after most of the actors already left. And he came out, and we were like, oh my god, is that Darko? And like,
yeah, Darko.
He went to the theater to pick up like some of the stuff left behind, and I wrote a mail to him before when I knew that Anastasia was closing. I sent it to the theater. So when we went to him, he was like, oh, I was just picking stuff and everything. And he was holding like a deck of letters. And the first one, I was like, oh, that was mine.
Oh, yeah. No, he is a very...
Oh, my God.
Very sweet man. He says, He's very few words. He says very few words always, but every word is so specific and so important. And he's just a very, very sweet man.
And I mean, I just really love how this whole show was directed. It was amazing.
Yeah.
I've been a fan of that animation film already. And then, you know how sometimes people compare when there's like an animation version of film first and then bring it to Broadway.
Mm-hmm.
But when this one bring it to Broadway, I was like, that's exactly what I need. Like, he brought everything.
Yeah. No, I think they did.
Of course, there's no like the bad and the bad.
Right. No bar talk, sadly,
but we have an amazing lab. That was great.
Yes.
From like playing so many characters since like the UCLA production, Broadway, you've played like Tommy, Dr. Palmetter, Dwayne, Dmitry, etc. There's so many of them. Mm-hmm. Which one do you feel like most related to yourself, to you as Jake?
Interestingly enough, I think probably Dr. Palmetter. Mostly because of his, he is just a quirky, trying to be cool, like, he is innately a cool guy, I think, which, yes, I'm saying, I think innately I'm a cool guy, but at the end of the day, he's a goofball and nervous under pressure and, all those things of, I also think I just had the most fun playing him. I just felt like I didn't have to do much. And again, we did a sort of shortened, abridged version, concert-esque version of the show at UCLA. But in all those scenes, I just had so much fun, and I didn't feel like I had to be wildly different than myself. And I mean, even in Dmitry, I feel like I put a little bit more of a, somewhat heroic, sort of feel on, but I never had to do that with someone like Dr. Palmetter.
That is kind of fun for me. Like, I didn't really expect that answer.
Yeah, no, because I mean, again, most of the characters that I will play are the, romantic sort of lead and, opposites the other romantic lead, the girl and whatnot. So it's always like the suave, and especially in older musicals, male characters are always portrayed as, so heroic and so sort of manly man, which, definitely I consider myself a man, but it's, I think in more contemporary musicals, they sort of break down that stereotype a little bit more and that sort of caricature and you're able to have a little more fun and have a little more of like a human in there. Yeah.
Well, the time has passed really fast. I didn't even notice that.
Yes. No, we're having fun. That's why.
It's a fun time, but like we're towards our last question. What are you looking forward after like theaters, when the curtains are back up again? Are you thinking you're aiming for another theater work or like TV, going back to TV or film a little bit?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I feel like I've been on this sort of upward, spiral of musical theater and theater in New York. And, I've had a great 2 years of a career post-college. And so obviously I'm sort of excited to see what could come next and what, will be further down that journey. Obviously, if, someone said, hey, Jake, you want to be in a TV show? I would love to. Don't get me wrong.
Toothpaste.
Yes, hello. Yeah, I remember that. Oh my God. But yeah, I mean, I would love to do sort of any project that sort of excites me and a character I can connect to and a story I can connect to. And so I guess we'll see once the curtains come back up, once film and TV starts building back up, we'll see what comes.
I hope to like it get back really soon, and like I personally haven't really seen any of your TV and film stuff, so
I'll send you some good stuff.
I will be really
some of the older commercials. It'll be really it'll be Baby Jake doing things, so
Yay.
You'll enjoy.
Great. I'll also be really looking forward like to go to a cinema and watch you one day, like starring Jake Levy.
Me too. Let me tell you, that would be.
I know him. Okay, thank you so much for today's interview. It's such a good time to like see you again, even it's with the screen, but
yes, no, it's so nice to see you and be well as well.
You too.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.